With the NBA trade season heating up, we're going to be looking at some possible mock trades that the Chicago Bulls might make this season. This is your host, Rico Greenhowe, and you have found yourself on another episode of Bulls Digest. And so today we're going to be looking at a Bleacher Report article that has three players linked to the Chicago Bulls as possible destinations that they could land via trade. And so I figured that this would be a good one to look at, especially since we are just seeing some of the noise recently around the Chicago Bulls with that huge report that the Denver Nuggets might have some interest in Zach LaVine. This is huge for Chicago Bulls fans, especially since we had been hearing that it was pretty quiet around the Chicago Bulls. And so I think that most fans would agree that the Chicago Bulls need to shake it up. They need to make some trades in order to get in the right direction. Hopefully they're able to retain this pick in this upcoming draft. And so let's go ahead and take a look at this article by Eric Pincus. You can find this on Bleacher Report. And again, it's looking at 10 players. Three of these players are linked to the Chicago Bulls, and basically what he's doing is he's describing, the situation with each player, and then he has just landing spots for these players. And so the Chicago Bulls are with these three. He also has some other teams linked to them as well. And once again, this is all hypothetical situations. And so let's go ahead and jump into the first name that I think is really notable on this list, and that is Walker Kessler. And so, look, Walker Kessler is a player that I would absolutely love to get in Chicago. I mean, he is absolutely a double-double machine. I mean, he's averaging 11.2 points a game, 10.5 rebounds a game, 1.4 assists, and he has a great field goal percentage. And so if you're looking for a big that can definitely block some shots, he certainly has great hands in catching in the post and getting up shots that way. He can finish on the break and things like that. Like Walker Kessler is that player. But the issue and why I don't think that this is going to happen is because when you look at Walker Kessler and you look at his contract, it's a contract that I think it's team friendly right now, especially for the Utah Jazz. And it's a contract where, I don't see the Chicago Bulls trading for it. It makes sense. But, for what we would have to offer, I don't think that the Utah Jazz would be interested at this point in time. And then plus, I think another hurdle for getting Walker Kessler is that the Utah Jazz, they would more than likely want a first-round pick, which is something that Eric Pincus talks about in here. And so because of that, with the first-round pick, I just think for a team that is trying to, really maybe tear it down and probably needs the draft capital, I don't think giving off draft capital to get Walker Kessler is necessarily going to be the best bet for this team. And when we talk about just like trade situations, from a contract and matching that up, I don't think that there's anything that the Utah Jazz would be interested on the Chicago Bulls in doing that. And, with the situation with Utah as far as their roster and just moving forward, they're linked to possibly moving on from John Collins. He is the current center there. And then right now, too, they're dealing with an injury with Taylor Hendricks as well. So he's out. And so that leaves Walker Kessler up. And then you also have Cal Filipowski as well that they just drafted. And so I don't see Utah going out there and trading him away, especially when they're essentially in a rebuild. And so I think that that scenario is not going to likely happen if the Chicago Bulls, were listed or are listed as a landing destination. And so next up, another player that I believe it is not going to happen as well, and they are linked to the Chicago Bulls via this article, and that is Clint Capela. And so with Clint Capela, I think that this is definitely a no. Maybe it was something that was more realistic in the offseason because Clint Capela has an expiring contract, and so I do understand that aspect with Clint Capela. I mean, he is averaging 10 points and 9.4 rebounds a game, and so he is a double-double. But the issue with him is he's at $22 million. And so, when it comes down to it, I saw a mock trade back in the summer when Vooch was going through his struggles, and it suggested that the Chicago Bulls and the Atlanta Hawks would just pretty much flip centers. And now I definitely think that that is not happening, especially since Vooch is playing at an all-star level. level. And I think that the Chicago Bulls can get way more than that, and they should. And, I just know that that's probably not going to be a deal that will likely happen. And two, with Clint Capela, one of the things that Eric Pincus mentions in his article is that, he's likely going to be in the buyout market. And then, with that expiring contract, that makes sense. And also, too, the Atlanta Hawks they're really competing because they do not have a first-round pick, I think, for this upcoming draft. And so, I just don't think that the Chicago Bulls would be likely to make a deal there. Lastly, the last player that is linked to the Chicago Bulls in this article is Jonathan Kuminga. Now, with Jonathan Kuminga, I think that this is a no, but I also think that this has more possibility than the other two players. And so with Jonathan Kuminga, he's very interesting because when you look at it, I see some reports where it seems like Golden State is really high on him. Then the next time I see some reports that it's just they're not so high on him. So it's like a hot and cold with Jonathan Kuminga. And so, personally, I think that Jonathan Kuminga has a ton of upside. I like the fact that, he does give you some length out there. So that's definitely something that the Chicago Bulls would certainly want. He's averaging 15.4 points a game, 4.4 rebounds a game, 2 assists a game, and he's shooting 45.2 as far as field goal percentage is concerned. And so, look, he's shown that he can knock down the three ball. He's also shown that he can fill the lane. Defensively, he's shown that he could be a lock-in and be a good defender there. And so there's a lot of things to like about Jonathan Kuminga, but it's just, is he going to get to that upside? And so that is the question around a lot of players in the NBA. And so, I do like the fact that, he is young enough. It is a possibility that the Chicago Bulls might want to, maybe invest into him. But right now he's on an expiring contract. And so you have to ask yourself, if the Chicago Bulls are going ahead and trading for him, is it something where they have enough time to evaluate him before they go to the negotiation table? Now, if the Chicago Bulls were to do this, based off what Golden State has recently done, because Golden State has wasted no time by going out there and trading, away an asset and getting Dennis Schroeder over. And so now that they have Dennis Schroeder over, he really stabilizes Golden State. This is something that I think that they've wanted since they made this trade, because when you put Steph Curry on the bench, you have a player that can come in and score. And also, too, defensively, Dennis Schroeder is going to definitely defend somewhat out there, so he's not going to be a liability. And so, would the Golden State Warriors want something from the Chicago Bulls that maybe complements this? I would say that if a deal does happen, it would center around Patrick Williams. And this goes around maybe what we had heard earlier, with that Jake L. Fisher report, and just hearing the rumblings that, pretty much everybody's available. The Bulls would be more open than ever to maybe moving Patrick Williams. And so if they were to do this, and let's say that they were just looking for Patrick Williams straight up, this is what that deal would look like. And so, they would get Patrick Williams, and I didn't put any draft capital on there, but this is essentially what you're getting. You see that you have some expiring contracts with Gary Payton II. You also have Jonathan Kuminga, which I talked about. You're going to have to make that decision here. So, do the Warriors take Patrick Williams and feel like that they can really unlock that potential? Do they think that, they can get something from him offensively? You already know what you're getting defensively here. And so I just think that this is going to be unlikely because, he's coming off the foot injury right now. The value is very low, which is why I'm definitely also selling this as well. But if they wanted to, they would have this to go along with Dennis Schroeder. Now, I think another thing that maybe could sweeten the deal and maybe get Golden State to do this, if these two teams wanted to do this, I think that you would have to actually add a player. And I think that player would be Lonzo Ball. Now, if you put Lonzo in the deal, this also changes it up as far as what Golden State would have to ship over, because now we're talking about the salaries matching up. Now, from the Golden State's standpoint, they would get a player to go along with Dennis Schroeder. Now, that definitely gives you something with that second unit, helps stabilize you as you take Steph Curry off the floor. And then, Steve Kerr, he's coached Sean Livingston. And I talked about this before with Lonzo. I think Lonzo is going to be in a Sean Livingston type of role in his career moving forward. And so, look, he comes to a situation where they have pretty much perfected that. I talked about how Sean Livingston won a title. This is something similar that they might be looking for a defender. You're looking for somebody who can definitely go out there, distribute the basketball at a high level. You need that basketball IQ out there. He can knock down some big shots, and he's really upping his minutes, so you might need to get a spot start from Lonzo out there. And so that's where it works. And then that kind of incentivizes them to take on Patrick Williams. That way it's like, if it works out, fine. If it doesn't, maybe, they can eventually move on from that. And with the Chicago Bulls, you get Kuminga, you get an expiring contract in Gary Payton II, but you would also have to take on Andrew Wiggins, which I'm not sure they would want to as far as the Chicago Bulls are concerned. And then again, I mean, you're taking that in, and I'm not looking at draft compensation. I don't know what that would look like. But this is just surely looking at the contracts and how it works. And like I said before, I don't think that this is likely. And one of the things that Eric Pincus mentions about Jonathan Kuminga is this is probably going to take multiple teams. Don't look at this situation as just two teams making this happen. And then two, with Golden State, they are close to the first apron. So that is something to really look at as well. And so lastly, I wanted to look at, some possible scenarios for Lonzo Ball. This is not in an article. This is just kind of throwing this out there. Maybe some situations where the Chicago Bulls could maybe trade Lonzo Ball. We haven't heard very much. We only heard that, maybe they're looking for some second round picks to move off of Lonzo. And so, here is one of the deals that I think maybe works out for Lonzo, and that is sending him over to the Kings. And I think that you send Lonzo over to the Kings. He's playing with DeMar DeRozan in that situation. He could help Malik Monk when he comes off the bench there. And also, too, he helps them as far as their pace and play as well. And so I think that, he helps speed them up. He's going to help players get to some easier shots and things like that. And Mike Brown, look, he coached at Golden State. And again, it's that same philosophy. So that's why I think that a player like Lonzo Ball perhaps works in this situation. And this is more of like a win-now situation for the Kings, or within the next couple seasons if they go with Lonzo Ball. And as far as the Chicago Bulls are concerned, they get a player in which they could move off of, especially with Kevin Huerter. I feel like, he is a player that you could utilize right now. He's also a player that you might be able to utilize in the future. And with his contract, it's something that is very movable. And then with Trey Lyles, that is an expiring contract, and something that I certainly think the Chicago Bulls would move off of, maybe immediately here. And so anyway, let me know in the comments what you think about these possible trade scenarios. Do you think that, the Chicago Bulls might look to add some of these players that Eric Pincus mentioned in this article, whether it's Jonathan Kuminga, Walker Kessler, or Clint Capela? And also, too, what do you think about this mock trade that I threw up with Lonzo Ball possibly going over to the Kings? I'm thinking that maybe the Kings might take a chance. This is something that really nobody has talked about as far as maybe getting Lonzo Ball moved maybe back to the West Coast. Maybe that's something that he wants to do. So let me know in the comments what you think about these recent mock trades here. Just want to thank everybody out there for liking, sharing, and subscribing to the content. It means a lot to us here at Bulls Digest as we try to reach our goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the NBA season out there. Want to let you know about 68.3% of you that watch are not subscribed to the channel, so make sure that you go ahead and you slam dunk on that subscribe button for us, as it means a lot as we try to reach that subscriber goal. And look, even though the Chicago Bulls, really seriously need to get a direction, and I don't care who you're trading for, it has to be something that it cannot be just for the short term. It has to be something that is really for the long term. And I think the bottom line is, you have to figure out, okay, are we going to go ahead and completely tear it down? Are we doing, just a soft rebuild? Like, what is the direction here for this team? Because I think that really dictates a lot of what you are going to do as far as going out there and trading right now. Because we know that as constructed, this Chicago Bulls team, it's probably likely headed towards a play-in situation, in my opinion there, and that means that puts you really on the verge of probably losing that first-round pick. And so, anyway, let me know in the comments what you're thinking, and as I usually say, go Bulls. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.